The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet, the KittyRose lifestyle, or the program underwriters.
This is the movement. The movement.
Comfortable with folks or giving, or
Um,
has that always been your nature?
yeah, I think so.
Question: Are you white?
Yeah, my mom's parents are from Italy.
Okay.
My dad's parents are from Russia.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you why I asked that in a minute. So yeah, you've always been that.
Yeah, I've always been that. I haven't always had a connection with why I've been that way or what I want to get out of being
Okay.
like that. But as an adult, it's become clearer to me to change the world, or be a part of changing the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you? Like, are you an artist? Are you?
I'd say I'm an artist.
Okay.
I'm an artist. I'm a teacher.
Okay.
I'm an activist at times. I kind of see my life as,
Because you're an actor also.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember all the things
Yeah.
that you said you were.
I perform. I like getting in front of audiences in different ways
Okay.
and connecting with them and trying to blow their minds a little bit or get them to come out of their shells.
How is a white guy in Harlem making change and movement? And the reason why I asked you that because at one point, my children like to consider me a racist, and most black folks believe that we can't be racist,
Right.
but we can be.
Uh-huh.
And I, for the longest time, always felt like my issues were black issues. My issues were women issues. My issues was black issues. I was not a fan of white folks moving to Harlem. Like, I just was like, no. As I've gotten older, thank God, and more open, I realized that it's a human issue. It's not a race issue. It's not a culture issue. We all share, with different cultures, we all share the same issues of developing and learning how to navigate through life. And it's like, you have the white people who say, well, I have black friends, and now you have the black people, well, I know one white person, or I have
Right.
white friends. Like,
Right.
they're not all bad,
Right.
but we still have this in our head. I'm so sad to say,
Yeah.
but we still have this in our head, like, well, what's the white guy coming to the hood to save our kids?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Yep,
saying?
yep.
What's the white guy coming into the prisons to save our kids? Do you deal with that? Are you told that subliminally in some kind of ways? And
Yeah.
how do you say,
So-
well, yes, it's the white guy?
Right. Sometimes, because I look at it like, sometimes I am the white guy. Sometimes I'm just a guy. Sometimes you're a beautiful black woman in front of me. Sometimes you're just a beautiful woman in front of me.
Okay.
So I have these moments where I have my racial lenses on and they see black and white, and then there are times that it's not. It's just human beings. I've been in the process of deprogramming myself from this mania that culture has created. So sometimes I know that when I walk into a room, whether it's in jail or in Harlem or in Brooklyn, and I'm the only white guy or one of few white guys, white people, I know that can be glaring at times, and I feel like less and less, more so in the past, but less and less, it's an issue. Because I think other people like yourself, black people, are realizing, oh, wait a minute, it's not just a racial issue. Can't deny that there's a racial thing going on, but it's a human thing. And I think even 10 years ago, it was more a color thing, and it's less so that now because people see how anybody can sell out their people, quote unquote, right? So I also am super clear and aware that, yeah, I'm perceived as a white man that can either work against or for me. I show up and I feel like I'm a spy to a certain degree. I'm taking information from the black community and I'm bringing it back to the white community so that I can dispel some of the bullshit that white people think they know about black people.
Okay.
And just by interaction with black people. So there are times where I feel like I'm a spy and I'm gathering data, and just by being and interacting, and when I go back to the whites, they learn.
Okay.
I also feel like sometimes I'm an ambassador because I'm a white dude who goes into some, like you said, up in Harlem, and it's predominantly black, and I'm a white dude who is now changing the way black people see white people, because a white person can actually be not just white, right? A white person can also be
Robert.
Right.
Right.
And so sometimes it's working for me and sometimes it's
Okay.
working against me. When I go into the jails, which I'm disgusted that, 99% of the people in there are people
You
of
said
color.
99%.
There's not a doubt. I mean, when I go in and there's 400 people, I'll see one white person
Are you freaking serious?
incarcerated. Yeah, in the teenagers, and that's where I work with teenagers. I rarely see a white kid in there. I rarely see an Asian kid in there.
What do you think that's about?
That's about the way this country's designed. This is about white superiority, white supremacy, white.
But, okay, I agree, but I don't like that, because I also think that's a little myth. I also think that, okay, maybe it's the jails here. You know what I'm saying? I think if you go to Wisconsin, or Oklahoma, or predominantly white
Sure.
community, then those prison systems will be, because I give an example. Have you ever seen the show Shameless on Showtime?
No, I've heard of it, but I've heard of it.
I watched this show Shameless, and it's probably one of the best shows on television, but it's so sad. It's one of the saddest shows, because for years you see poor blacks or poor Latinos, you've never seen poor white trash on TV.
Right.
So to have a show, and I mean poor white trash, you know what I mean? And to see this being shown, but also see the human side to it, it kind of opened my door to, okay, everybody incarcerated isn't black, or Latino, but that's what they want us to, what people
They want
to
us
think.
to believe, and white superiority doesn't mean that it's only white against black. White superiority means the white guys who look down upon poor white people, as well as black people. When I wear my hair short, and I have a nice short business white guy cut, and I get on the subway, the businessmen look at me and they just look away. They see this guy with short hair. When I let my hair grow out like this and I get on the subway, the white businessmen look at me like I'm a freak. So there's certain levels of that white superiority, not even supremacy, that superiority that has been developed in our culture, that it does transcend the colors.
How does that make you feel? Just Robert, not Robert the white guy. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel really terrible, but it also makes me feel super invigorated. I don't know why. I get off on the excitement of breaking that pattern, breaking that hold that it has. Some people get off on skiing, and some people get off on mountain climbing or diving. I get off on shattering whatever preconceptions people have racially, whether they're white or black. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you been able to use your artistry and merge that feeling of kind of wanting to shock the masses or kind of dispel?
There's some theater that I've been involved in. There's some poetry that I've written that I feel like shows there's a transcendence for people. There's a common ground for people.
Does it become tiresome?
No, again, I for whatever reason, I mean, it is exhausting because it's so ridiculous.
Oh, right, okay.
So, but it can get tiring, but there's nothing else that I would rather be doing.
Wow.
Than trying, like, I have a friend who's working on the cure for AIDS with an organization. He said, "Can you do a little flash mob with us?" Yes, of course. So for me, I'd rather, I like to party. So I like to party after I've done something substantial.
Okay.
And to me, that's substantial. So if we go do a flash mob for AIDS cure, then I feel like I have the right to go and screw off the rest of the evening or whatever. So that's where it's meaningful for me to make moves.
How has that affected you as a father? Or played a part as a father?
When my son was younger and was more willing to unquestion me, like kids start to question their parents. I went from hero to zero at the age of 14.
Okay.
And so prior, while I was in the hero stage, it was great. He marched for Trayvon Martin. He marched for Sean Bell. He did some protesting after 9/11 at the ages of 5, 6, 9. So he has a sense of what that's like. Now that I'm a zero, he doesn't really care to do what I do.
Okay.
But I think he understands that I have my own mission, and
Okay.
he's starting to see that, he's not just my dad, he's a totally different guy. He's Robert Kaminsky.
When did he start living with you?
He started living with me when he was 16.
How was his mom able to let him go?
He was split between our two households.
Right, but I mean like full time with you.
She was big enough to know that.
Okay.
A couple reasons. My apartment might have been a little bit bigger. He had a little more privacy. He was a boy and he might need to be a bit more with his dad. So she was big enough to understand and put him in front of her own feelings and say, this is what we think is right.
How many times have you actually seen that where women actually are getting in the way of their boys becoming men because they can't let go and let their sons live with their dad when they're in separated homes?
I haven't been around that a lot myself intimately, but from things.
Well, you might have, because I feel like that could be also part of the problem why there are so many young men in the prison system.
The problem that there are so many young men in the system is because there are not enough men taking care of their children.
Right, but there's a huge amount of women who are not even giving the men the opportunities, and then men get, and I'm not justifying this, but then men get, well, she's a bitch.
Right.
She's annoying, so I'll just wait until he's 20 and he's on his own. But then you're doing him a disservice because you're not fighting her to be like, look, this is not about you. It's not even about me. This is about him, and he needs to be with me and be big enough to say, you know what, you're right. So I think that a lot of us have gotten in the way of our sons blossoming because we kept them in the house with us.
I think so. I don't think that's the biggest cause, but that's definitely a contributor. And luckily, my son's mom was strong enough and open enough to see that he needed that.
Okay.
When you also say why are there boys in prison, I think, and I don't want to blame it on men, because I don't blame it on the men solely, because this system has been set up to keep black people as slaves.
You believe that?
100%.
Okay.
There's no question.
Okay.
There's no question.
Okay.
It's just.
So then, how does anyone, white, black, Latino, Middle Eastern, Asian, how do we fight that? Can we fight that? Okay.
Yeah. To me, I feel like it's going to end up in the street. My opinion is, every day speak out against what you see as wrong, and every day find opportunities to make change where you feel like you're the most excited about doing that.
Okay. So I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't want to fall into the regular questions that you get because you're the white guy.
Go for it. Not a lot of people have done you're the white guy thing in a long time.
Oh,
so
really?
It's
Okay.
refreshing.
Well, you know why? Because the world isn't black and white.
So one thing that I don't let go is sometimes is knowing that my white skin will bring me privilege. Right?
Yes.
And the reason,
but not necessarily, because I think that might be a myth. I think that again,
it's a mix. It's
okay.
It's a mix. Yeah, that's why I said might. That's why I said might bring me. So
because you look a little Latino too, a little bit.
Okay.
With the long hair, maybe. That's why I said, are you white?
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, I'm Italian, so I got a little black in me.
Yes.
Well, I date black women, and they're not on the low.
Okay.
Okay. So
but you're not the typical white guy.
But I grew up in a typical white guy community.
Okay.
I grew up in a suburb of
So have you
Connecticut.
brought black women home to your parents?
Yeah.
And what has been the reaction from them?
My parents are cool. The reaction has been, at the beginning, the reaction was, why would you want to do that? You're going to make your life harder because you're going to be an interracial couple. It was never, she's not good enough or black people are bad, but it was always, and my mom married a Jew in the 40s and she's a Catholic.
Okay,
so there was a little bit of that. So she was like, it was hard enough for just being Jews and Catholics, but why do you want to do that? And then I said, this is who I am for whatever reason. This is my attraction, you know, this is what I like.
Okay.
And then as they got used to or understood that was me, then they were like, it didn't matter. You know, it never mattered. They always welcomed anybody into the house.
How many kids are there?
I have one child.
I mean, how many siblings? How many children did
they
your
had
parents
5 boys.
5 boys. Did your parents stay together?
Yeah.
Okay, so you grew up in a 2-parent household with your siblings.
Yeah.
Where are you in the 5?
There's 3 older, 1 younger.
Okay, so you're kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to the white supremacy type of thing and that being what folks believe or think it's going on, what has been some of the challenges then about being white? Because life is still challenging, period.
Right.
You know what I mean? And again, we are on this, you know, this so-called myth that, you know, white folks don't have problems. Everything is, you know, it's just blacks and Latinos or poor whites or whatever have you. I don't know if you're a poor white or whatever, or what would consider being a poor white. But without any of that, just
Programmer. Television has been the number one programmer of people's minds and what they believe. So the challenges for me have been to fight through what I'm supposed to be as a white guy. As a white guy, I'm supposed to be concerned with what kind of car I have, how many garages I have, how often I get vacations, how much money I can make. I'm supposed to be concerned with, are my wife's tits firm? You know, the simple, the superficial kinds of things where, you know, what kind of wine am I drinking? Things that don't connect to community and substance, right? It's actually, it grades out kind of like white guys are at the top of that list. And then, you know, I was a nursery school teacher for 2 years. I was the only guy and the only white guy. So actually there was one other white guy, but it was all women. So we as men are also not even taught to be concerned with what's going on in our world, to have empathy for other people. So I should have been like the majority of the people I grew up with in the suburbs of Connecticut. I should have been a 9-to-5 white guy worried about making money and taking care of my nuclear family.
Are your 4 siblings those white guys?
My 3 older brothers are kind of that.
Okay.
They're open. My younger brother's not. He's nuts like me.
Okay.
In that he's not your typical white American
Okay.
male. The other 3 guys are, to a degree. I think all of us are institutionally racist.
Okay.
You know? I don't think any of us in my family anyway were overtly racist. Fortunately, my father loved music.
Okay.
And he was a jazz head.
Okay.
So we had.
It's amazing how music breaks the barriers of
so we had Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5. We were 5 boys. They were 5 boys. So we were growing up with them. We had the LPs. We watched, you know, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Ella Fitzgerald, all these great jazz people. All of them people of color. So there was never any real overt discrimination in our family, and I think none of us grew up like that.
But isn't that almost kind of a little racist in a sense? Because it's like we don't necessarily interact with people of color, but we listen to their music.
Oh yeah. And when we do interact, what do we get? We interact with watching them being taken in with their hoodies and their hands behind their back. When we do interact, they're either sweeping or doing the floors, right? Or they are packing the groceries in the grocery bag or delivering the groceries, or they're digging the holes in the streets.
Right.
So, or it's when we're out at night partying, walking from restaurant to restaurant, and there's that old cute black man singing and dancing that's begging for some change. So white people, we really love our Bojangles black men who are out there. You know, they are not real people. They are caricatures. I get disgusted now when I see even black people who are, what's the word? The black people who are indoctrinated into sort of like this white culture. You know, people will stop in the West Village and there's this black dude who's begging for money and telling jokes or singing a song for money. It's a novelty to us. It's not a real thing.
Do white people coon?
Coon?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? I mean, I know what a coon is.
Okay.
Sense.
Okay.
What's cooning as a verb?
I think it's the same as what you think it is as a negative sense. Sellouts, performing for that
Every day. What do you think we do every day?
Performing for that.
It's like, do they not coon? That's the rare moment.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So why do you think that's not called out?
Because,
again.
Yeah, well, that's because.
Oh my goodness, it's so
the
sad.
Twilight Zone reality we live in is white, is the standard. Like, I get pissed and annoyed when I see on the news, she's the first black ballerina in the New York or Joffrey Ballet. I'm like, why is that? I mean, I can understand from an achievement for black people that no one has ever done that before.
Right.
But that means the scale of norm or excellence is in a white frame. I hate that. I'm sick of hearing the first black female astronaut to go into space because white people have done it, and now she's the first black. Has she graduated to a higher? Now I have a higher opinion of her. Has she taken it to the next level?
Right.
So again, like I don't want to dismiss the empowerment that comes with shattering some kind of ceiling or boundary.
Right.
But I get a little upset that the boundary is always by a white standard.
Right.
Why when you go to every museum and gallery, is it 80% of the art, European art is the classic, and that's what we're tested up against? Why are there black people in museums? You know, Bones and their stuff is in museums, our stuff is in galleries. Right? You know, that's
right.
It's a Twilight Zone.
It is a Twilight Zone, and because it's a Twilight Zone, and it's something that's so prevalent even now today, I guess that's why it becomes such a topic. So I'm kind of glad that I've been one of the first in a while to ask you that, but I want to get off of that because it does annoy me that we do live in a world that's so black and white, because it's so not so black and white, but it so is.
But I mean, like again, like I can feel my white, whatever you want to call it.
I felt a kind of way about here.
In here.
You know what I'm saying?
I walked in here.
I'm in Harlem.
Right.
But you may not think that.
You walk in here, you would not notice it.
And the two cats that own WeWork are not black.
Right.
And well, this is one office out of
so
like 300.
get a studio in the Mist. It's owned by the black man.
But that's the problem, because whatever financing they got doesn't allow them to do what these non-people of color, because they look white, but one of them looks actually Middle Eastern, but it's two guys that started this idea, not this idea because this is not a new kind of idea, but started WeWork 4 years ago.
They're everywhere
and they're freaking everywhere. There's 300 and some of them all over the world. There's not 300 and some miss.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? And I've been a Harlem business since '98, and I've watched Harlem businesses, black owned, be here before anything and now not be here, but now you have the fancy. You know, you come in here and you got him.
It doesn't look like Harlem inside.
You know what I mean? But it is Harlem,
right.
You know? So I feel like that's where we have to get away from. It's like we're creating more of the inclusion than it really actually is. So because I want to break that for not only myself, and I'm grateful that my children have allowed me to break it, I want to break it for the world, the norm, because that's another distraction, I think, in the matrix. Let's talk about the white and black issue.
Totally.
But let's talk about the human issue. Let me talk about what challenges have you had as a father. Like right now, you're not the hero stage, but you're still dad. You're still fortunate enough to have your 20-year-old son live with you and be with you. His own life, your own life. But how's that? You know, so and that has nothing to do with you being a white guy. That has all to do with you being a dad and how being an artist, because you don't have a 9-to-5, or you do have a 9-to-5.
No.
I just don't have.
No.
I'm not aware of.
No.
So you don't have a 9-to-5, and yes, you have white privilege, and maybe you have a couple of more dollars, maybe, than I do. But artists are poor people, period, and financially.
Yeah.
So but you're still raising a young person. You're still raising a young adult, even if he has his own job or whatever have you. What has those challenges and joys been having your son with you full time for the last 4 years?
So
and before you answer that, how are you when it comes to him and sex? Like, do you support him bringing women home, or do you to me those are still again, human things and parenting things that. Let's talk about those things. Let's not be distracted with the fact that you're a white guy. Let's talk about the
Even
fact
though
that
my
you're a
son's
son.
mixed.
Is he? Mixed. What's his mom?
Jamaican.
So you ended up impregnating a black woman. Whoa, I can't even say
And
that. 'Cause
marry.
And marry him. Wow. Okay, so. Okay, one, how did that happen?
Well, she had a glass of wine, and I had a glass of wine. How did what? I've always been attracted to women of color.
Really?
Always.
Okay. How long were you guys married? Are you still married?
No.
Oh no, because you don't
Yeah.
live in the same house.
Yeah.
How long were you guys married?
About 6 years. My
Did
problem
race ever play?
is I love that white hand on a black hand.
Okay.
Vice versa. I love the
Okay.
way that feels and looks.
Okay.
I was at about 5 years ago. I was like, "Yo, man, you better start dating some white women because the pool is smaller with you just looking at women of color."
Okay.
So I started going on dates with white women, and I'm like, she's really got it together. She's cool. She's smart. She's energetic. She's pretty, but there's no spark the way there is when I'm with somebody.
Wow. So we're gonna go back to your son, but now
Okay.
you got me on this dating thing. Pillow talking with her. What did she express to you that she got on the outside about dating a white man and then marrying a white man? Because we are hard on
Yeah.
each other, and we are hard on sisters.
Yeah.
And then and the funny thing is, well, then we say, well, the brothers aren't treating us well, so why not?
There's just
open
too many
myself?
broad strokes when I hear. There's just too many broad strokes. You know, it's not that it's not true, but it's like every person has a different experience. So to say that black men that date white women are selling out their black women and are abandoning their black women, I could see how you could see that if you're coming from sort of like a black nationalist mindset or
Okay.
a black unity mindset.
Okay.
But I could also see even if you're a black nationalist or black unity, you're looking at the person. Sorry, the
It's
person.
okay. I just don't want to block you.
You're looking at the person, not the stigmas, right? So,
So what did
some black dudes, yeah, I'm assuming some black dudes, yeah, they're bailing on their race because they're sick and tired of the strong black woman or the whatever woman,
they
right?
say we too snappy?
Yeah.
So what was her pillow talk with you like when she was on the
She's
outside?
like, "Oh, Robert, you're so cute." Oh, that's pillow talking.
Yes.
No.
What was her pillow talk about? How her people treated
So
her?
she is a Jamaican woman, so she is very clear about.
Is her accent strong?
No.
Okay.
No, she grew up in Jamaica till the age of 6.
Okay.
So she's kind of like a Jamaican American.
Okay.
But she's a Jamaican woman, so she's very clear about not being considered an African American
Okay.
woman. And I've seen this happen with other people from the Caribbean as well. Their problems are different than African American problems. However, when you're black in America, you got African American
everyone else
problems.
sees just see black. Right.
So when she caught any kind of grief, it usually was just from Jamaicans.
Okay.
It was usually just like, and especially when she grew her locks, it was kind of like, oh, you got locks, you all like that, but you with a white man, So that was where she caught any kind of grief that she might have caught.
So how did she say "F it, I love him" at that moment, at that time?
I think that's what she did. What you just
Okay.
did. Just like, screw it. It's
Right.
not. Who are you?
Okay.
Who are you? That's your belief and your problem and your pain and your anger.
So it ended. You guys continued to co-parent.
Yep.
And then at 16, your son came to be with you full time.
Pretty much. I mean, he still had access to her
Well,
place.
yeah, I don't mean that he didn't
She didn't
live
live
with his
that
mom,
far,
right? But I mean,
his primary,
waking up, going to sleep, he was
primary
with his dad.
was here. Yeah.
So how was that for you?
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
I love it.
All the time?
In the big, no, not all the time, but in the big picture, it made me feel like, wow, this is, I can influence my son with my behavior, which wasn't always great, but or I can influence him with my, our conversations. I just felt, this guy is in my house. I love this guy. It's great.
This is the movement. The movement.